So here's the thing. Recently, I finally got my hands on Metroid Dread. Yeah, it took me long enough. But man, this game really is great. It kind of reignited my love for the Metroid series and caused me to go back and play the rest of the games again, at least the mainline ones. But it did make me realize that there's probably a lot of people out there whose first Metroid game was Dread, so they may be a little bit confused on the story, which personally I think is actually really great. So, if you're one of those people, or you just want to learn about Metroid lore, then this is the video for you, as we're going through all of it. Strap on the seatbelts for your spaceships there, buckaroos, because this one is gonna be a long one. So let's stop lollygagging and get this intergalactic adventure started with. You guys better appreciate this one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe! Thousands of years ago, when man was still throwing spears at one another for poor quality copper, there was an ancient race of bird people called the Chozo. The Chozo were an incredibly advanced species even at the time, and we learn more and more about them throughout the series. However, for the sake of keeping the story's flow, I'll be telling this in chronological order. Anyways, fast forward a couple thousand years and their numbers have mysteriously dwindled. Humans somehow managed to get their act together and make their way into space and meet some funky alien dudes. So, they all come together and form the Galactic Federation. Ah, damn it, they're the boring Stellaris players. Anyways, it turns out that it's kind of hard policing an entire galaxy. I mean, obviously, cops these days can barely catch a murderer that keeps his corpses in the backyard. How the hell are they gonna stop criminals when they can just fly to another planet? So, realizing their incompetence, the Federation creates an official bounty hunter system. Basically, they put out bounty contracts and people just take them up. Pretty simple, I guess. At about the same time, on a distant mining colony, two humans named Rod and Virginia Aran, yeah, those names feel right, are living with their daughter Samus. This colony is mining a very rare and volatile chemical called hydrogen dioxide, which catches the attention of the Chozo, along with the space pirates led by Ridley, a giant fire-breathing space dragon. God, I love this series. Anyways, Ridley kills Samus's mom, and her dad sacrifices himself to blow up the hydrogen dioxide to make sure the space pirates can't get it. And when it's all said and done, the entire colony is destroyed, with Samus being the only survivor, though badly wounded. Luckily for her, a Chozo named Old Bird swung on by and spotted her, and, well, let's be honest here, he kidnapped her. Kidnapped her to save her life, but kidnapped nonetheless. The only problem is Samus can't survive on the Chozo home planet of Zebes, so they decide to inject a bunch of Chozo DNA into her, giving her inhuman strength and agility. Luckily, this does not turn her into some bird-human hybrid freak, though I doubt that there would be any less fan art of Samus if that were the case. In fact, it might be more. Now, Zebes is a wacky planet because it's run by a genetically created brain-computer thing called Mother Brain, which oversees basically everything, including the Chozo's secret project. When they're not raising Samus, the Chozo are working on a mysterious creation, the franchise's titular Metroids. Why exactly they're making these deadly jellyfish that suck the energy out of anything they come into contact with won't be explained for a while here, so just you wait. Now, the Chozo are a warrior race, if you can believe it, so as part of their culture, Samus ends up being trained by them, even getting her own biomechanical suit of armor called the Power Suit. This thing is organic and part of her body, so remember that. She can still take it off and stuff, it's just, look, Chozo technology is so advanced it may as well be magic, so just don't worry about it. Then, about 15 years pass without anything really important happening. Once Samus comes of age, however, she decides to put her training to good use and join the galactic military. Samus didn't quite fit into the whole military thing, though. Too much bureaucracy and shit for her taste. She's more a shoot first, ask questions later type of person, so maybe she should have joined the Space ATF. The only thing about the military that she responded well to was her superior, General Adam Malkovich, who in my headcanon is the direct descendant of John Malkovich. The two had a kinship with one another and respected each other. Adam even gave Samus a nickname. It was Lady. Really? You couldn't have gone with something like Sammy? Or something a bit more endearing? Anyways, after finishing off her time in the military, Lady decides that bounty hunting is more her style. Now, there's actually a bit of a timeline split here. If we're following the original story of the first game, Samus then went on to be a successful bounty hunter for a few years, and then the events of the first game happen. If we're following the plot of the remake, then the first game happens almost immediately after Samus decides to be a bounty hunter. Now, my general rule of thumb is to follow the most recent lore, which would be the remake. That and the manual of the first game calls Samus a cyborg and also a man, so we're going with the remake. Shortly after Samus becomes a bounty hunter, Zebes is attacked by Ridley and the space pirates. By now, members of the Federation government are well aware that these bird fuckers have been genetically engineering Metroids, and are scared shitless when they realize that these terrorists are now in possession of what is generally considered to be one of the most deadly creatures in the universe, as well as Mother Brain, who is the only thing that can control the Metroids. So now, basically everyone is panicking, and obviously you can't just send the military on in, because if the pirates saw a giant armada of ships headed their way, they might make plans to evacuate. And it's really in everyone's best interest to keep the Metroids on Zebes. So, the Federation covertly puts a bounty on them, and Samus thinks
it's time to pay the price.
She takes up the bounty, hops in her ship, and begins her journey as a bounty hunter. 3 pages into the script and we're finally on the first game. Let's go, boys. We're still using the manga for footage for a bit, though. Once Samus lands on planet Zebes, she discovers, shock of all shock, this invasion was actually an inside job. Mother Brain has gone rogue and wants to use the space pirates and Metroids to achieve galactic domination. I should mention that, while I have been using the manga as background to the video so far, it's not technically considered fully canon. Like, the actual plot of the manga isn't canon, but the world building and backstories it provides are, especially since we see references to it in future games like that one. The changes the manga made were done so in order to make it flow better as a narrative. For example, instead of Samus finishing her time in the military and then becoming a bounty hunter, the manga has Zebes attacked while she's still in the military, and she's effectively committing desertion. Also, for some reason, the manga changes it from the military to the police force, which is strange because Adam is a general of the military, so why would he be a commanding officer in the police? Maybe it was just a translation error. Anyways, I just want to make sure we're clear on all of this. Back to the games. So now, Samus has to traverse her old home of Zebes, now taken over by space pirates, defeat Ridley, Mother Brain, and this random other thing called Kraid, and save the galaxy from the Metroid menace. She also kills basically everything else in her way, even if they're just normal-ass animals, like Sidehoppers, Ripper 2s, and Zoomers. Hey, that's me. Near the end of the game, Samus descends into the depths of Zebes, finally coming face to face with the Metroids. Famously, the only way to kill a Metroid is to freeze it and then blow it up. God damn, these things are durable. Samus finally makes contact with the elusive Mother Brain, and performs a full frontal lobotomy the likes of which we haven't seen since Rose Kennedy. But oh no! Mother Brain has rigged the entire base to explode when she dies. So, Samus performs the first of her many timed escape sequences, and just barely makes it out of the base's blast radius before it goes kablooey! This is normally where Metroid 1 would end, but Zero Mission added an epilogue, where suddenly Samus is ambushed by space pirates and gets shot down, crashing into Zebes' surface. The attack also destroyed her power suit, somehow, so now, armed with nothing but her Zero suit and a pistol, she must somehow make an escape. It's a tense level as Samus is constantly getting spotted and chased down with a gun that can't even kill the space pirates. She has to crawl through tight spaces and hop around between tripwires and spotlights, until suddenly finding herself in some familiar Chozo ruins. Hey look, it's Old Bird! Samus is then put to a test by some hologram magic thing, and by passing it, she is granted a brand new and upgraded power suit. Remember, don't worry about the science behind it, it's basically just magic at this point. How the fuck does a 6'3" woman crunch down into a ball like that? Chozo magic, that's how. Anyways, now that Samus is fully decked out, she lays waste to the space pirates. I like that this one tries to hide. Didn't work though. Delving further into the ship, however, she finds Meta Ridley! For the longest time, I thought that this was some sort of plot twist, that Ridley was a robot or cyborg the entire time, but apparently no, it's just a robot or cyborg or whatever that Ridley had built in his image. I guess that's vain enough for a space pirate, that makes sense. After defeating Meta Ridley, he engages a self-destruct sequence, 2 in 1 game, and Samus shoots her way out of there and just barely escapes as the space pirate mothership blows up. Good job, Samus. I'm sure we'll never have to come back to Zebes again. Seeing how we just finished Metroid 1 from 1986, you may assume that next up is Metroid 2 from 1991. Metroid Prime is a series of 3D first-person shooters which act as a side story to the main Metroid story. They also all take place between the events of Metroid 1 and Metroid 2. While it is occasionally debated, for the most part, it's an open and shut case that the Prime games are canon, based on the fact that Nintendo routinely counts the Prime games in official timelines, as well as never really saying they aren't canon. Because of this, my workload has effectively doubled. Yay! And now it's time for a confession. At the time of writing this, I have never beaten a single Metroid Prime game. Moreover, I've only ever even played Metroid Prime 1. This is kind of a big Metroid fan sin, to be honest, since the Prime games are generally hailed as one of the best Metroid games out there. And my personal opinions aside, I do at least respect their legacy. Who knows, maybe if people want to hear, I'll talk about my opinions on Prime. But that's for another time. Look, I'm just laying this all out to say that most of my knowledge of Prime lore came from secondhand sources, so if I miss something or make a mistake, then I'm sorry. Metroid Prime begins with Samus investigating a distress signal set out from a satellite orbiting a planet known as Talon 4. But she quickly realizes that it's been overrun by Meta Ridley and the Space Pirates, who blow the ship up and fly to Talon 4. While she doesn't quite know what they're up to, having dealt with them before, Samus is sure they're up to no good. So she gives chase and begins her adventure on Talon 4. During her adventure, probably after she went through the Sam Lava Room for the 20th time, Samus discovers that the Space Pirates are here to collect a highly radioactive substance known as Phazon. See, the Chozo, who had settled on Talon 4 centuries ago, studied Phazon, and learned that it could kill pretty much anything it touches, and anything that survives would be mutated into some ultra-powerful freak. In fact, we even see multiple mutated Space Pirates throughout the game. It's pretty obvious why Samus can't let Meta Ridley get his grubby metallic claws on the stuff. Also, now we're actually starting to get into real magic, as apparently the Chozo prophesized that Samus would arrive and deal with the source of the Phazon. So basically, a giant space creature called a Leviathan crashed on Talon 4, and an early Metroid experiment managed to get its way to the Leviathan, which was just blasting Phazon all over the place. The poor little guy got mutated into the Metroid Prime. The Phazon explosion also resulted in a bunch of Chozo ghosts to be created, which you encounter throughout the game. So, Samus deals with Meta Ridley and the Space Pirates, and then because she was brainwashed by this weird bird cult for her whole life, she buys into the prophecy and charges headfirst towards this giant mutated Metroid. To her credit, she does get herself a Phazon suit, which makes her immune to the radiation, which is nice. After defeating both forms of Metroid Prime, it suddenly attaches itself to Samus and rips her Phazon suit off of her normal power suit? Again, weird Chozo magic. But the crater begins to fall apart, so Samus quickly gets out of there, just barely making it as the crater collapses in on itself. Samus flies off, but unbeknownst to her, in the secret ending of the game, some of the Phazon of Metroid Prime survived, and has rebirthed itself in her Phazon suit, now becoming everyone's favorite Smash recolor, Dark Samus. Metroid Prime Hunters comes next, and it's like one of the most inconsequential games in the series, to be honest. But not the most inconsequential, that's coming later. One day, the Galactic Federation receives a strange message coming from an uncharted part of a different galaxy, claiming that the secret to ultimate power lies in some place called the Alembic Cluster. Also, apparently the Federation has empaths? You guys chose, like, the worst psychic power possible. You know that, right? Anyways, the Federation puts out a bounty that can basically be summarized as fuck around and find out. We also find out that there are apparently galactic-level groups outside of the Federation, since apparently the Tetra Galaxy, which is where the Alembic Cluster is outside of the Federation's borders, and so this has to remain a covert mission as not to cause a snafu. Whatever group is in control of the Tetra Galaxy is also setting off its own bounty hunters, so Samus may end up taking them on. It's fun to see other bounty hunters beyond just Samus, but these guys are basically just bosses. The only one of note is Sylux, this purple guy who's basically the Boba Fett of Metroid at this point. More on that later. After many adventures in the Alembic Cluster, Samus makes her way to the Weeblet? Yeah, let's go with the French version. The Weeblet, a prison created by some ancient Alembics. Turns out the whole ultimate power thing was a trap set by Gloria, so now Samus has to kill him, which she does. But the shockwave of the final blow seems to really fuck up the Weeblet, so Samus once again has to make the last-minute escape as it explodes. This bitch just cannot go anywhere without something exploding. Onwards to Metroid Prime 2! Samus is hired this time to go and investigate why communications with the Federation military team that was sent to the planet Ether went silent. She gets her answers soon after landing when we get our first proper introduction to Dark Samus, who's doing some freaky Phazon shit with these random freaky monsters. So fun fact, not too long ago people were crazy thirsty for Dark Samus because they were like,
Oh my god, emo Zero Suit Samus, yes please.
Then people who don't like fun point out that, hey, Zero Suit Dark Samus would look like a weird alien thing. But, truth be told, that did not fix the situation. Anyways, as Samus explores Ether more, she eventually comes across Umos, one of the few remaining members of the Luminoths, the species which called Ether home. Turns out those freaky guys from earlier are a race called the Ing that the Luminoths had a war with. They're pretty fucked, being able to siphon energy from the planet to sustain an alternate dimension version of Ether that exists on top of it? So, Samus decides it's time for some good old-fashioned genocide. Also, a Leviathan crashed here too, so there's a bunch of Phazon going around. Eventually, Samus is able to defeat the majority of the Ing along with their king, which causes the Dark Dimension to start falling apart. Time for another escape sequence, I guess. However, before she can properly skedaddle, it's time for an epic final boss with Dark Samus. She is able to defeat her blue counterpart and escape the Dark Dimension as it implodes in on itself, finishing off the last of the Ing. Samus is thanked by the remaining Luminoths, and she flies off into parts unknown. But, in the secret ending of this game, Dark Samus revives. Somehow. Finally, on to the last of the Prime games. Well, kinda. Metroid Prime 3. We are supposedly getting Metroid Prime 4 sometime soon, but at the time of writing, we don't even really know when that game's gonna be released. Metroid Prime 3 begins with Samus being called to a meeting on the Federation ship Olympus, with Admiral Dane and 3 other bounty hunters, a robot named Gore, a rock guy named Rundus, and a weird plasma shape-shifting lady thing named Gandrea. Firstly, turns out the Federation created, effectively, a bunch of new mother brains called Aurora units. Round of applause for whoever came up with that genius idea. That shit worked out so well the last time. Are the Auroras actually going to go rogue, or am I just being an asshole for no reason? Vote now at www.e621.net. Anyways, the reason why Samus and the other 3 are here is because the space pirates infected the Aurora unit with some sort of virus. Luckily, the Federation managed to actually not be incompetent for once, and stop the spread of the virus. Now, all the 4 have to do is deliver a vaccine to each of the other Auroras and cure them. Simple enough. I guess Samus was just in the mood for an easy job when she took this bounty, which, hey, fair, we've seen the kind of shit she can get herself into. But suddenly the space pirates attack! Action time, as Samus and the other bounty hunters have to fight against the space pirates and Meta Ridley as they invade the military base on this planet. Suddenly, the space pirates deactivate a space laser cannon, just as a Leviathan appears and begins to hurtle itself towards this planet. A coincidence? No, as we soon learn that Dark Samus and the space pirates are now working together. Dark Samus also fucking effortlessly takes out all 4 bounty hunters, but Samus is just barely able to gather enough strength to activate the cannon and save this planet from becoming a Phazon-infused hellscape. After a month-long coma, Samus awakens to find that her and the other 3 bounty hunters were so irradiated by the Phazon blast that they are generating their own Phazon. This is remarkably worrying, but don't worry, it's not the first nor the last time that Samus's body gets permanently altered. Luckily, this doesn't really seem to mean anything bad at first, since it's not killing any of them, nor does it seem to be affecting anyone they come in contact with. In fact, it actually not only allows Samus to survive in Phazon without a special suit, but also, thanks to some modifications to her power suit, she's able to use Phazon to power up and increase her firepower. So that's nice. Anyway, Samus learns that while she was out, 2 more Leviathans crashed onto 2 other planets. Gore and Rundus were sent to 1 each, while Gandrea was sent to figure out where the fuck the space pirates are hiding out. However, contact has been lost with all of them. So now it's up to Samus, as the last known bounty hunter who can withstand Phazon, to go and sort out what the fuck's going on. After some Prime-style adventures on a planet called Brio, Samus discovers that the Phazon inside of her and the other bounty hunters, if overloaded, could cause them to become corrupted. Oh, that's why it's called that. And yeah, that's basically what happened. The other 3 bounty hunters succumbed to Phazon madness! And now Samus has to deal with them too. However, after defeating each one, Dark Samus flies in and absorbs their abilities, just getting stronger and stronger. At the same time, Samus is getting more and more corrupted with Phazon. Her next stop is the planet Elysia, where basically the same shit happens, just this time Samus manages to heal one of the Aurora units. So that's nice. Then Samus and the rest of the Federation managed to actually track down the space pirates' homeworld, which by this point in time is kind of a big deal. However, it's so irradiated with Phazon that the planet itself is becoming pure Phazon, which doesn't make any sense, but it's cool. Samus heads on down there, takes down a planet-wide shield, and even leads the charge on a full frontal military assault on the space pirates' homeworld. And yes, Metroid is mainly a series about going on these adventures alone, but since this is the only time in the series that something like this happens, I'd say it's pretty cool.
Fancy meeting you here, friend.
Oh! Meta Ridley has ingested so much Phazon by now that he's got a new name. Omega Ridley. One final battle later, and Samus is finally able to put down this mechanical monstrosity for good. Maybe. We'll have to see what Prime 4 does. By now, Samus is really far gone in terms of Phazon corruption, as she's barely holding on at this point. But no matter. The Federation was able to finally track down the origin point of all this Phazon, its home planet of Phase. After managing to gain control of the Leviathan, Samus, along with the Federation, launch a full frontal assault against the remaining space pirates protecting Phase, while Samus flies on down to sort shit out once and for all. Because this planet is just pure Phazon, Samus is barely able to prevent herself from going mad. The only way to do so is for Samus to permanently keep her hyper mode on, which, hey, who's complaining? Finally, Samus makes it to the planet's core to find that Dark Samus has stolen the last of the infected Auroras. The two fuse together and an epic final battle for the fate of the universe ensues. Of course Samus prevails. We've got like 6 more games left to talk about. Holy shit, we still have 6 more games left to go. Samus defeats Dark Samus once and for all, who implodes, which also begins to destroy not just the Phazon inside of Samus, but also the planet Phase itself. All of the space pirates and like half of the Federation military die in an explosion, but Samus is able to just barely make it out of there. After giving a thumbs up to the survivors, which is just cheesy enough to make me smile, she takes a breather and reflects on the other bounty hunters that went mad and died. However, as she flies off, we see a mysterious ship tailing her. And according to multiple people at Nintendo, that's Sylux's ship. Remember Sylux? The purple guy from Metroid Prime Hunters? Well, apparently he's out doing something. We don't really know because Prime 3 came out in 2007, and we still haven't gotten a new Prime game yet. Oh, god damn it! Okay, so, allow me to diverge from the whole lore explanation thing for a brief moment, and take some time to explain to people who don't like Metroid, you know, just in case they're still watching, why Federation Force pissed everyone off so much. Like I said, the last Metroid Prime game came out in 2007. The last mainline Metroid game was that one in 2010. However, Other M was a prequel. The last new Metroid game story-wise was Fusion, way back in 2002. So, depending on how you look at it, we either haven't gotten a new Metroid game in 6 years, 9 years, or 14 years. And when in 2016, we finally saw we're getting a new Metroid game, people were rightfully miffed when it was revealed to be a colorful, cartoony, online multiplayer spin-off game for the 3DS, where you don't even play as Samus. Yeah, people were pissed off. It really didn't matter how good of a game Federation Force was, it was never going to be well received by the fans, at least not at the time it came out, due to the fact that most believed the franchise was being mishandled by Nintendo. That, plus poor marketing and the fact that it's just a bad game overall, made it by far the worst selling game in the franchise, only selling about 150,000 copies worldwide. Even fucking Metroid Prime Pinball sold nearly twice as good. No one wanted this game. No one wants this game. And yet it is canon, so I will talk about it just very briefly. So after the events of Prime 3, the space pirates are heavily weakened but not yet wiped out. So the Federation creates its own highly trained group of operatives who pilot mech suits. This is the aforementioned Federation Force. They go around, blow stuff up, meet Samus every now and then, and at the end of the game, Sylux is seen sneaking into a Federation base, finding a Metroid egg, and hatching it. What's Sylux's endgame? We'll just have to wait until Prime 4 to get that. That's it. We're done with the Prime games now. We're moving on. Fuck you, Federation Force. It's such a shame that the Prime games ended on such a Federation Force note. However, we're back to quality as we leave the Prime side story and hop back into the mainline series with Metroid 2. God, that name is so absurd in retrospect. Technically, it's Metroid 7 now. After so much bullshit going on with Metroids, The Galactic Federation decides, alright, let's commit genocide. Turns out that the true homeworld of the Metroids, where the Chozo actually created and cultivated them, was on a planet called SR-388. Presumably it's a dwarf planet because Samus's mission this time around is to traverse the entire planet and wipe out every single Metroid. Just all of them. Literal genocide. The Federation sent a small military force to do this first, but they lost contact. Luckily for us, Samus seems to have a knack for this whole thing after the whole Aang situation. I mean, she does have blonde hair and blue eyes. Maybe it's in her blood. However, given that this is the Metroid homeworld, their proper life cycle is actually able to take place. The lime green jellyfish of yore are maturing into the Alpha, Gamma, Zeta, and Omega Metroids, each one more powerful than the last. This is, scientifically speaking, a big fucking problem. But wait, don't worry, it gets worse. Turns out there's also a Queen Metroid, the one responsible for laying all the Metroid eggs. That does make the job a bit easier though, as now all Samus has to do is finish off the Metroid Queen after killing the rest of the Metroids, and she's done. You may have noticed, by the way, that I'm not using footage from either the original Metroid 2 or the Metroid 2 remake for the 3DS, but instead the fan-made AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake. That's because AM2R is a better Metroid 2 remake than the actual Metroid 2 remake. Also, I don't know why it's called another Metroid 2 remake, as this was in production years before the actual Metroid 2 remake got announced. Anyway, Samus is able to complete this mission by going into a morph ball and blowing the Queen up from the inside. However, just as she is about to leave, she comes across an unhatched Metroid egg. Just before Samus can destroy it, a baby Metroid hatches, but it imprints on Samus. Realizing that the baby— oh god, I said it! Realizing that the Metroid isn't actually hostile, Samus decides they may actually have some use for it. So she goes against her orders, doesn't destroy the Metroid, and the two peacefully and quietly leave SR-388. Huh. For once, Samus didn't blow up a planet she completed her mission on. I bet that won't come back to bite her in the ass. Well, the next game in the series, Super Metroid, actually takes place directly afterwards. Samus delivers
the baby
to a research base for it to be studied. After logging in a journal entry, she flies off to hopefully rest a bit.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
Anyways, the space pirates come to fuck it up. The real Ridley finally makes a dramatic return as he kidnaps
the baby,
kills all the scientists on board, and flees back to planet Zebes. Samus gives chase, and what follows is a trip down memory lane as she must once again traverse the bowels of Zebes to retrieve a captured Metroid from Ridley, Kraid, the space pirates, and a newly rebuilt Mother Brain. There's also two other bosses that she has to fight, Phantoon and Dragon. They don't really do much, but for some reason you have to kill them in order to open the gate to get down to Mother Brain. During this adventure, Samus finds unsuccessful clones of Metroids, called the Mocktroids. They're imperfect and nowhere near as hard to kill, but the fact that Samus now knows that they plan on cloning
the baby,
it just gives her more urgency. Eventually, she tracks down Ridley and the two clash yet again. But when Samus goes to retrieve
the baby,
it's broken out of its capsule. Further down to Zebes, she also finds real Metroids, which does not bode well, as well as this giant-ass thing. It sucks Samus down to an inch of her life, only to pause just before killing her because, surprise, this is
the baby.
I wonder if people who don't know what Metroid is are just very confused by what this running joke is about. Don't worry, you'll learn soon enough. But yeah, obviously feeling bad for nearly killing its mom, the Metroid flies off and leaves Samus to confront the newly rebuilt Mother Brain. And rebuild her they did. God damn. She pretty nearly one-shots our favorite bounty hunter, but the last second,
the baby
arrives to save her. Not only sucking Mother Brain to death, but also healing Samus. But Mother Brain reawakens, kills
the baby,
and in its final breath, he grants Samus the Hyper Beam, which she uses to blast the shit out of Mother Brain. And, as usual, there's one last step to go. Mother Brain has rigged the entire planet to explode, just to really make sure that Samus wouldn't escape. Then Samus escapes, along with these little animal friends that helped her along the way. 3 Edacoons and a mama and baby Dracora. This is entirely optional, by the way, but canonically Samus does save the animals. But that wraps up Super Metroid, and now it's time to jump to 2010 to talk about that game. You know, that game every franchise has. that game. Sonic has Sonic Forces. Zelda has Triforce Heroes. Pokemon has every Pokemon game after Gen 3. You know, that game. And for Metroid, that game is Metroid Other M. This game is infamous for its mediocre gameplay, poor level design, terrible story, and horrific characterization of Samus. Really, I could do a whole Let's Talk About just on Other M. And maybe I will if you want to see it, but for now, let's just stick to the lore. So, we begin with a dramatization of the end of Super Metroid. Samus is saved by
A baby.
gets granted the Hyper Beam, and uses it to finish off Mother Brain. Thing is though, that Samus is fucking obsessed with this goddamn baby Metroid. Now yes, I get her being a bit upset seeing how it saved her life, but goddamn, this bitch acts like this Metroid was her son. 6 times. She says the word baby 6 times in this intro cutscene to this fucking game in reference to the Metroid.
The baby. The baby. The baby. The baby. The baby. The baby.
Even all this time between the end of Super Metroid and this game, she is still hung up about this goddamn baby Metroid. They even make her say baby another 3 times, because apparently the SOS signal she gets is codenamed Baby's Cry.
I altered the course of my ship as if this detour had already been part of my flight plan.
Samus, what does that mean? Alright, sorry, I'm getting off track. You're not here for me to editorialize. Like I said, Samus gets an SOS signal coming from a space station named Bottleship. Not Battleship, Bottleship. Soon after landing, she meets up with a platoon from the Galactic military, among which is Anthony. Remember him? Adam Malkovich is there too. Samus reveals to us that she was, apparently, involved in a serious incident that caused her to leave the military on somewhat bad terms. This incident was apparently so bad that, unlike good old Anthony, Adam doesn't even want to see Samus. But Samus is desperate for Daddy's approval to the point that she willingly deactivates all of her suit upgrades just to follow these Federation dorks around. Yes, this is actually the explanation that the game gives for why Samus doesn't have all of her upgrades at the start of the game. Most Metroid games do have to explain this in some way, since upgrading Samus is just a core part of the series' gameplay. Samus having her abilities throughout the game and just actively choosing to gimp herself for Daddy's approval is, obviously, the worst possible excuse they could have come up with, but I digress. After exploring around a bit, one of the military guys goes missing, but more importantly, Samus discovers a space pirate cyborg with a Federation insignia on it. Oh my god, is the Federation experimenting on its prisoners? No. Bottleship was just doing illegal experiments. They also discover that the person in charge of Bottleship's experiments was a Dr. Madeline Bergman. Why the fuck is Samus the only human with a weird space name? Adam, Anthony, Rod, Virginia, Madeline, and even everyone else in the platoon who don't really matter at all are named like Lyle and James. And you can't say that it's a Chozo name because it's just not. Samus was named by her parents. This isn't a plot hole, I'm just stalling for time so I can take a break from having to talk about Other M. After a bit of nonsense with this furry creature that appears to be evolving, one of the Marines is found dead, and the rest of the team is just really beat up about it.
He looks like a pile of rags. What's gotta happen to a guy to make him look like that?
We then get the second most infamous part of the whole game, where Samus is literally being cooked alive in her suit but refuses to activate her Varia suit upgrade, which allows her to survive in extreme temperatures, until Daddy Adam tells her it's okay. After a bit more of not much happening, Samus finds another corpse of a Marine, as well as something that isn't a corpse. She yells that
The Galactic Federation wants to silence everyone who knows about our work here.
before suddenly both of them are attacked by a forklift-certified Marine. By God, he's unstoppable. Also, Samus can't identify who it is, because there's a comical giant barrier in front of his face. Like, what the fuck is that even for? I guess it could be like a screen, but like... Oh god, that's so stupid. Because no one knows who this is, but everyone believes that he's the one killing everyone, Samus gives them the terrible name of the Deleter.
Deleted!
We get reminded that that furry thing is evolving into some sort of monster, and then we learn about the incident that caused a rift between Adam and Samus. So there's this guy called Ian, who was Adam's brother, who was doing some repairs on a different part of the ship, when oh no, it's overheating beyond their estimates!
It is overheating beyond our estimates!
It's overheating beyond their estimates! And that means kaboom. Also, Ian can't just leave for some reason, so Adam makes the call to detach that part of the ship so only one person explodes and not everyone explodes. Samus says no, Adam says yes. Samus says no, Adam says yes. Samus says really no, and Adam says really yes. Then his brother explodes. The end. Remember a few paragraphs ago when I said this furry thing was evolving? Well, it's reached its final form, and that form is Ridley. Then we get the single most infamous part of Other M. Samus sees Ridley and has a PTSD episode and is unable to do anything. Let me remind you that canonically, and also by the time this game came out, Samus had fought Ridley not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 times before this. Hell, if we count Meta Ridley's cameo in the remake of Metroid 2, that bumps it up to 7 before now. But it's number 8 that finally gets to her. And it's not like a moment of shock like, oh god, this asshole again. There is a physical inability to even move because of the amount of trauma she's dealing with right now. She is incapacitated, which causes best character Anthony to fucking die.
What you say? That you only meant well, 'cause you did.
I understand that everyone responds to trauma differently, but by this point in the series, we have seen time and time again that Samus responds to trauma by shooting it in the fucking face. Eventually Samus does do that, but she doesn't even get the satisfaction of killing him because Ridley just flies off. Samus then realizes that Adam isn't talking to her anymore, and for once we actually get a scene of her acting like how she should act, not giving a shit and activating her abilities anyway, even joking if Adam's okay with it.
Any objections, Adam?
She finds that not corpse thing from earlier, and she explains that she is Madeline Bergman, and that the Federation wanted to create a branch of the military using bioweapons, hence the space pirate cyborg thing from earlier, as well as other things like Ridley being here. But they ended up going rogue and attacking everyone. Samus observes that the Federation could have just nuked the entire base because they thought everyone was dead, but Madeline explains that they're making fucking Metroids. God damn it. It doesn't help that they're also using DNA from
The baby.
and also recreated Mother Brain using an AI. They named this AI MB, and if you have a Mother Brain cell left in your head after this fucking plot sucked most of them out, you may be able to see where this is going. So Samus goes to the Mother Brain part of the ship, finds a baby, but before she can shoot it, Adam shoots her, then the Metroid. Samus is obviously confused by this, but Adam explains that since Metroids were made to be weapons, their weakness to the cold was removed genetically, which is going to create a massive fucking plot hole in the next game. But I digress. Adam also explains that MB has changed the bottle's course, so now it's headed directly for the Federation homeworld. Shit's about to get fucked, and the only way for it not to be is if somebody goes into the part of the ship where they're holding the Metroids and starts blasting the shit out of it. This would cause it to detach and self-destruct. For some reason. Samus' only job now is to finish off whatever mutant freaks are left, including Ridley, who, by the way, she doesn't even get to kill as he's already dead. She also finds another Marine corpse, along with a random scientist lady. She's freaking the fuck out when suddenly the goddamn Queen Metroid just shows up. Like, yeah, they were working on Metroids, but if you're gonna have them go throughout their entire lifespan, you know, fuck it, who cares? Samus battles it as Battleship makes for Federation HQ, however, mere seconds before the point of no return, the bottle suddenly and mysteriously breaks, giving Samus the opportunity to finish this bitch off the way she did last time. Okay, we're almost done here. Samus confronts the scientist and she explains that she's Madeline Bergman, and the other girl's actually MB in an android body. Samus, wanting this shit to be over more than I do, decides, fuck it, let's just face her down. Madeline tries to reason with MB, but MB's like, nah, humans suck, when suddenly the whole fucking military just barges in out of nowhere, and these random schmucks kill the main antagonist. Also, Anthony survived, and he stopped the ship. They all leave, but wait, there's post-game content. Samus goes back to get Adam's helmet before the bottle is destroyed because the Federation just is sick of it at this point. Phantom shows up for no reason, and Samus escapes just as it explodes. Finally ending Other M. Wait, who was the deleter? It couldn't have been Adam because he was in his control room this entire time. It couldn't have been Anthony because he was out of commission when one of the members died. And it couldn't have been this guy because Madeline's freaking out because someone killed him. What the fuck was it then? Oh god, I don't fucking care. Look, I knew going in that this would be the longest section of the video, and moreover that I'd probably end up ranting a few times. I swear to god, I had to restrain myself while writing this part of the script. There is so much shit I had to just let fly. I might actually have to do a Let's Talk About Metroid Other M after this video. Let me know if you want to see that. This whole part is just making my throat sore. I just want to get done with... Jesus Christ. But with Other M done, all we have left are two great games. Metroid Fusion came out in 2002, 8 years before Metroid Other M. I just wanted to establish that because you may notice a thing or two. Samus is off on another Federation bounty to assist a small squad of Federation scientists going on an expedition to explore SR-388. However, Samus is suddenly attacked by a strange yellow gloopy thing. This is the X-Parasite, and this is why the Metroids were created. As it turns out, they were manufactured to be the predators for the X-Parasites, who are incredibly deadly and dangerous as they are able to disguise themselves as whatever host they absorbed. Since all the Metroids are dead now, a few managed to survive, and now we have an issue. Samus doesn't know this though, so she gets on her ship, passes out, and the ship flies right into an asteroid field. Bye, Samus. Okay, obviously Samus survived. Her ship automatically shot the cockpit off as a sort of escape pod. She's rescued by the scientist she was helping, but since she's unconscious, she can't use her Chozo powers to will off her power suit. The scientists do their best to surgically remove the infected parts of the suit, but they can only go so far before they hit a point where they cannot remove any more of the suit without killing Samus. One of the scientists had an idea to create an anti-X vaccine from the DNA of the baby Metroid. They decide to go for it, and surprisingly, it works. Now, does this make any sense? No, but fuck you, space science. What's left of Samus' suit, dubbed the Fusion Suit, has lost most of the power suit's abilities. However, being infused with Metroid DNA has given Samus a one-of-a-kind ability to absorb the X-Parasites for health and ammo. So, that's Chozo DNA, whatever the fuck happened there in Prime 3, and now Metroid DNA. Goddamn, Samus is just a petri dish at this point. Anyways, the BSL, Biological Space Laboratories, station that was orbiting SR-388 has gone silent while Samus was in her coma. Fearing the worst, the Federation gives Samus a snazzy new ship, complete with an AI, and sends her off to investigate what the hell's going on. Turns out, nothing good. The X-Parasite was able to mimic Samus' power suit, because remember I told you, that thing's organic, as well as its abilities. One power bomb later and it's broken containment. Since the X's are able to reproduce asexually, it shot out a fuck ton of X-Parasites, and now Samus has to find a way to stop her doppelganger, named the SAX by Adam, before everything goes to shit. Then everything goes to shit. In fact, by endgame, the only creatures in the entire ship that aren't X-Parasites are the Edicoons and Dracoras that somehow got here, Samus, and some other things. By the way, in this game, Samus gets her upgrades in two ways. One is via data sent to her by the Federation to these upgrade stations, and the other by just absorbing them from X-Parasite monsters. The latter of which seems to really interest and even concern Adam, since she's getting these abilities without Federation control. We also see him having a discussion with some secretive member of the Federation, and by the later half of the game, Samus begins to genuinely annoy him because she starts doing shit without his instruction. At one point, he gives her a very specific yet cryptic order to leave a section of the research station as soon as she finishes her business there. But Samus ignores this. She goes beyond a checkpoint that she shouldn't have, and finds a fuckload of Metroids. Not just normal ones either. There's Alpha, Gamma, and Zeta Metroids here. The SAX is also here because the X-Parasites recognize the Metroids as their enemy, so they want to take them out. It starts blowing up that part of the ship, so Samus detaches it and it explodes. Now, Samus is rightfully pissed off at this point, as Adam explains to her that there is a secret society within the Federation that tried to make Metroids for weapons. He also drops a bombshell that since the X-Parasites can reproduce asexually, there are probably a bunch of SAX on the ship. Adam then tells Samus that it's time to go, because the secret society now wants to also use the X and SAX. Samus says that that's stupid, and Adam reveals that they also stopped sending Samus upgrades because they didn't want her killing the SAX. It also turns out that a Federation military ship is already on its way to try to capture the SAX. But the X-Parasite not only copies the host physically, but also gains all of their knowledge, meaning that if the X-Parasites got on the ship, the universe is screwed. In a fit of justified anger, Samus screams at Adam to open the doors, letting her nickname for the AI slip. This seems to trigger something in Adam, as he suddenly decides to help Samus destroy the X-Parasites before shit goes wild. Their plan is simple. Activate a self-destruct sequence on BSL, then alter its course so that it collides with SR-388 just as it explodes. Since SR-388 is such a small planet, it would destroy both, ridding the universe of both Metroids and X-Parasites. This plan goes well enough until at the very end when Samus returns to her ship only to find that it's gone, and in its place is an Omega Metroid which almost one-shots her. Suddenly the SAX appears and starts attacking its natural predator again, giving Samus time to absorb it, which grants her her old abilities, including the Ice Beam. But wait a second, if they could make Metroids immune to cold in Other M, why not here? God, Other M sucks. Anyway, Samus' new ship suddenly returns. She gets on it just as the BSL enters SR-388's atmosphere, and escapes just in the nick of time. So apparently, the Federation inputs the consciousness of people who died into AIs, which is a bit confusing. Like, is it his literal consciousness, like Adam's brain is put into this computer? Or is it like a facsimile, like they programmed it to act like Adam? Either way, when Samus called it Adam, it seemed to awaken something in the AI, turning it into the real Adam, even calling her Lady. But wait, just before the game ends, Samus reveals that her ship could only be started manually. So who started it? Well, the Edakuns and Dracoras, of course. Now, I alluded to it before, but Other M blatantly rips off multiple plot points from Fusion, which, retroactively, makes Fusion's story feel lesser, like they're repeating themselves. But I just want to stress that Fusion basically told Other M's story 8 years before Other M, and did it 8 times better. But that brings us to our last and most recent game in the timeline, Metroid Dread. Following the events of Fusion, Samus laid low for a bit, as she deserves after all she's been through, but finally gets another mission when, suddenly, footage of an X-Parasite alive and well is sent to the Federation. They're able to prove that the video is real and track down where it came from, an old Chozo planet named ZDR. The Federation first sent a pack of robots called Emmys to explore the area and potentially track down the X, but they lost contact with them. With Samus being the only one in the universe that they know of who can withstand the X-Parasites, she is sent off along with Adam to find out what's going on. After riding an elevator to the lowest point of ZDR, during which Adam tells Samus they won't be able to communicate outside of specific communication stations, Samus is ambushed by a Chozo warrior named Ravenbeak. He almost kills her, but just before she passes out, some weird thing happens, whatever it is, and Samus wakes up an unknown amount of time later with most of her abilities stripped from her yet again. She also finds that the Emmy are hostile to her, and more importantly, what the fuck is a mother brain doing here? Well, we find out later in the game when Samus makes contact with, for the first time ever in the series I think, a living Chozo. Turns out, the Chozo aren't actually as connected as we may have thought, as there's actually different tribes of Chozo. Ravenbeak is the leader of the Makin tribe, whereas this guy, Quiet Robe, is a scientist from a member of the Toha tribe. The last of his tribe, actually. See, the Toha were the members of the Chozo responsible for creating Metroids, meaning that this is likely the tribe that Old Bird and to an extent Samus herself were a part of. The original plan was that once the X-Parasites were all gone, the Metroids would be destroyed. Ravenbeak, however, wanted to use the Metroids for military control, so he wiped out the Toha, but kept Quiet Robe alive so that he could help them make more Mother Brains, so that they could control the Metroids themselves. Just as they were about to travel to SR-388, the X attacked. They spread across all of ZDR, and most of the Makin tribe was wiped out. What few people remained were slowly yet steadily able to contain the X-Parasites. But, once that was done, Metroid 2 had happened. So now Ravenbeak and the rest of the Makin were like, well, now what? Somehow, they ended up learning that Samus has Metroid DNA inside of her. So, they used an X-Parasite to lure Samus to ZDR, and are now attempting to use the Emmy to suck Metroid DNA right out of her, likely killing her in the process. Samus says she'll take care of it right before Quiet Robe is killed, and now it's Samus' job to finish things. Also, the X-Parasites got loose and infected Quiet Robe. Whoops. Near the end of the game, Samus discovers that she now has the ability to absorb life and power from creatures using just her hands. As we find out, this is because Samus is becoming a Metroid, or at least gaining the power of a Metroid. Samus pays Ravenbeak a visit only to find a communication room. Turns out that the Adam that Samus has been talking to since their first encounter has just been Ravenbeak trying to get Samus to his side. Ravenbeak also reveals that it was his Chozo DNA that was inserted into Samus, and in his mind, that makes Samus his daughter. Samus says fuck that, starts to fight, but damn near loses. At the last moment, Samus's Metroid form finally fully awakens as she proceeds to scream like a motherfucker and suck the shit out of Ravenbeak. Wait, that came out wrong. God damn, her Metroid suit looks fucking cool, by the way. Ravenbeak gets absorbed by an X-Parasite, Samus finishes it off, and for some reason, ZDR just starts exploding. There's no explanation this time, the plant just self-destructs for no reason. Samus bolts for her ship, but just before she can activate it, Adam informs her that if she touches the controls, she'll drain the ship of all its energy. Remember, only the Toha can control Metroids. She has Malkin DNA, so she can't control her draining power. That is, until Quiet Robe shows up, and despite being an X-Parasite, is conscious enough to sacrifice himself, allowing himself to be absorbed and granting Samus the ability to properly control her Metroid powers. With that, she flies off from ZDR just as it explodes, finally ridding the universe of the X-Parasite, and ending the Metroid story. Well, time to come back down to Earth, boys. Wait, we're going in too fast! Let me just tell you, this is a great time to be a Metroid fan. Not only do we have Metroid Prime 4 coming, which, I'll take it, Metroid Dread is also the best-selling game in the entire franchise, which means we might be seeing a Metroid 6 sooner than later. And hey, if you want to get in on Metroid, it's remarkably easy. All the Metroid games are available on Nintendo's emulators, and Prime literally just got a remaster. There are countless opportunities for you to get into the Metroid series now, and I would totally recommend it. It's a great series full of great games, some pretty nice and memorable characters and set pieces, and hopefully by now you can understand a really nice story. Just, for God's sakes, don't play other Amur Federation Force. I'm SirStrongman, and see you next mission!